Okay, we've got another Legacy Series episode, an episode recorded before the shutdown announcement. Therefore, we don't talk about the shutdown at all because it hadn't been announced at the time, which means the conversation stays on topics to do with Echo, specifically the Echo community and this person's individual experience in the community. We speak about the Toronto LAN back in October 2022. This was recorded just after the LAN as well, so it's quite a fresh topic. But we also go into a different subject that I haven't really addressed in this interview series. It's a topic that's incredibly important. It's nuanced, it's dense, and it's difficult to go through. And I guess the coincidence, is that it applies ever more to where we are now post shutdown. That subject is grief. I don't want to go into it too much because I want this interview to, breathe in its own way. I want you to go into it and experience it as the conversation unfolds. This is a very vulnerable conversation for this guest to have, and I think there's definitely a place for it. So without further ado, this is EJP2016. Let's get into it.
Generally, I want to say thanks for coming on the show. I know we tried to make it happen. We're actually at LAN, but I'm organising it. You were a busy boy there. You were running around making sure everything was working. So I didn't really get the chance to get you down for like a whole hour. That would have been a big ask. But I appreciate you after the fact now sitting down and doing this.
No, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I kind of think this is kind of your the first format you did, so I'm super happy to be here. And yeah, LAN was busy. I would kind of go in every morning, even on the Friday, and kind of just make sure I was there early. And I think that's probably one of the things that kind of helped things run really smooth is that I'm a huge fan of Newton Dad. I followed him a lot of different places. Yeah. I know you said you had Gilligan on earlier, and yeah, I've kind of followed Newton Dad to Viridis and other places as well. And yeah, I'm obviously a huge fan of his work. And being able to kind of just help him get things set up. I think it took, I mean, he said as much that it took a lot of stress off of him. A, because we were able to get in early, and B, because everything was ready day of, so that there was no kind of rushing around in the morning trying to figure out how things work. We had it. The only thing we had to do was go in and put on our headsets, and he just make sure that he could pull everybody in, and we were good. So yeah, it was a great experience to be able to kind of work alongside him. But I think that was kind of one of several things that kind of just came together really well for this event.
Yeah, Newton Dad put in a very long shift, didn't he? He was working every day, the full day.
I don't know how he does that. I asked him several times. I'm like, dude, can I go get you food? And he's like, no, Smooth's going to get it. I'm like, I'm sure he is, but are you sure you don't need something now? Do you need water? Something? And yeah. No, he is a machine. But it was good to kind of sit down and work with him on stuff. And he was having a small issue with his he was getting things set up for the finals, the 5 round counters, and he's like, something just isn't looking right here. And he brought up the code, and he's scrolling through it, and he's like, okay, here's round 1, here's round 2, here's round 3, here's round 4. And I'm like, hold up, your 4 has a 3 in it. He's like, oh crap, you're right. He's like, that's all it needs sometimes, right? Is it just needs somebody else? And I mean, I think that was the whole theme of this LAN. Newton Dad and Sputnik and Smooth have run other LANs before, but he's kind of ran it as a one-man tech show, right? And kind of having somebody to look at things, or having somebody to kind of support you just to take some of the load off is huge. And the whole LAN org team for our LAN kind of really worked together that way. Me doing tickets and billing and website stuff, took that kind of stuff off of Smooth so he could just focus on sponsors, and Sweet Potato was doing organizational stuff and planning and like event setup and like checking the venue and things like that, because she lives in Toronto. So it just having a larger team all kind of pushing towards the same goal, but kind of splitting up the responsibilities equally, I think was just a huge factor and why things went as well as they did.
Is there any other shout outs as well? Is there anyone else that was helping? So you mentioned Sweet Potato yourself.
Yeah, Sweet Potato, Newton Dad, Smooth, Original, Lulz, and Tony.
Yes.
Without Original and Tony, the server wouldn't exist, so the event wouldn't exist. Nothing would have ever have come to pass. And Original and Lulz were kind of the masterminds behind both organizing the two the two different versions of the US versus Canada match, kind of the community one that premiered on VRML as kind of a promo, and they were kind of the brains behind putting together the teams. And I've been updating the website, and there was kind of three kind of tenets that we kind of worked off of that I think kind of helped make it a success, and their strategy and their kind of idea to ensure that there was equal, like teams were as fair as possible and there was like no blowouts or anything like that was huge. Like I think the balance, I love your opinion on it, but I think a lot of people said that they weren't kind of sure about the teams, but when they realized like why they were balanced the way they were, it kind of made sense, and it made it fairly equitable.
It's a very, very difficult thing to do. To balance team in a mixed tournament where you just don't know. You don't know how people are going to show up. Perhaps one person's been training significantly than others. Perhaps the whole team has been. Oh no, they wouldn't have found out who were on the team, right?
I mean, they had maybe a couple weeks to kind of get together, but
it's almost impossible job, and I think it was fairly balanced. I don't think there was any runaway teams. The final went on as many rounds as it possibly could. That's how close it was.
Yeah, and that was completely unexpected. We had a bit of an internal back and forth about whether or not we do the hotly contested bracket reset or not. And I think we all said, well, if VRML is still doing it, we should do it. Some people were against it, but and maybe that'll change in future years. But I think, it was as far as I know, it was a history-setting moment. Like, I don't think there's been any other LAN finals or finals of any other kind that have went a full 10 rounds on a bracket reset. So to kind of have that be the outcome of all of the work that Original and Lulz did to kind of put the teams together is really huge, and that's a huge kudos to them for their work on that.
What went surprisingly well? So apart from that, what other things went surprisingly well, would you say? Because I'm assuming this is your first time organizing these kind of events, or do you have a history?
No, not at all. I think just like the kind of the natural chemistry of the team and everybody coming together, and kind of the understanding that this was purely a community event. Like there's obviously other events that have been run that are community events, but I think just kind of everybody's willingness to kind of step up and chip in and know their strengths and know what's not their strengths, and in terms of kind of other things that went really well, it's kind of hard to pin one thing down. I think the tech went reasonably well. Getting everybody checked in. The venue was reasonably like central and accommodating. I can't really pin it down to one specific thing. I don't think. I think overall it was just it was it was a lot of work put into a small time frame. Like when we started, we did not we were thinking 2023. Like we were not,
Right.
we were not. We started planning kind of in the new year. So, I I'm trying to think about when it all started, but we started the ball rolling in kind of February of 2022, thinking like, hey, yeah, maybe we'll like do it next winter, right?
What,
Like
what
do it
was
in a
like?
year from now.
What was pushing you guys to make this happen? In general, what made you, inspired you to take that step of building a real life event?
So I think there's a couple of different things. I think the first one was we kind of had been seeing like the the previous events that had kind of happened the previous LAN. So obviously the two different red shifts, NEPA, Tyro, all the different lands that kind of
Hang on,
had come for us.
February. Sorry to interrupt you, but February
Yep.
you started having the idea. So
Yep.
a few of those hadn't happened yet, right?
I'm trying to think. I think they had, because it was February 2022. So I
think Tyro was like about to happen because that happened late February, I believe.
Right. It was about to happen. So we kind of knew that
Okay,
that it was on the, yeah. So we knowing that it kind of all had kind of was kind of rolling, we thought like if there isn't something, what, like we started looking at timeframes. We thought like, okay, if we started looking at the timeframes, we thought, okay, if Tyro's running now, odds are if they plan to do another one a year from now, next time this year is not going to be a good time. Then we started looking at when Redshift ran, and it kind of had a similar time frame depending upon the year, but it's sometimes it's run in the summers. So we're like, okay, and then I think NEPA was in the spring. I remember the dates. There's a lot of different dates. Or maybe NEPA was summer as well. But so we started looking at like where everybody else had went, and we kind of ended up in the fall for a couple of different reasons. The first one was we were looking at kind of a university reading week in the area, trying to keep it open for students that might come. That was kind of one of the factors. But then venue availability. Yeah, we had a couple of different ideas. It was initially just Sweet Potato and I, and Original and Lulz and Tony, and that was about it. And then I'm trying to remember. We invited Smooth in just to kind of consult, just because we're like, hey, you know what you're doing. If like, tell us if we're doing something that's completely insane, right? Like just every once in a while, if we can ping you and you just be like, hey, don't do that. That's not gonna it's not gonna work out well. And then we started getting like into like locking down a location, locking down a hotel. And he just said, do you guys just want me to just like, do you want me to just start calling hotels and just do this part of it for you? And we're like, sure, like, yes, obviously. Why wouldn't we, right? Like he's obviously run multiple events before, so it was super helpful to have his knowledge and his kind of ability to focus on that. And again, like I mentioned before, taking some of the other stuff off of him, the website stuff, the ticketing stuff and all that, I think allowed just everybody to focus on what they were good at in general.
It definitely feels like a team effort, building an event and the amount of people around helping out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. And I'm curious because Toronto isn't cheap. Downtown Toronto is a little bit pricey. How did you? Did you manage to break even at the end of the event?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I have a general idea of where things kind of went sales wise, but I'm not 100% sure what the venue costs and everything look like. And then sponsorship wise, what that ended up like. I'm guessing we kind of broke even because that was kind of Smooth's intention. He's like, hey, if I can do this and it goes like significantly well and I break even, then he considered that a win. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like that's all we could really hope for, right? So yeah, and I mean I think that it did. And there's obviously hotel struggles in terms of like booking blocks, and he's like, hey, I can like get a block, but like if I get more than people need, like I'm on the hook for that. So I mean, we did a block and it did get used up, and then unfortunately people couldn't get rooms, and yeah, it did become a, but yeah, I mean, it was obviously that part of it I think was probably a bit of a learning thing for me myself, because I had the only time I had ever done a block before was like when I married my wife, and like we did a block of hotel rooms for a wedding, and I'm like, you don't have to be on the hook for those. So it's a whole different paradigm. So
well, what was good, I know it was a very busy time. For some reason it was very busy. It was actually hard to get a place, but a lot of people just utilized Airbnbs. I know a lot of the kids, I think there's like 12 of them managed to somehow share one flat.
Yeah, that was, I at least saw one picture, so that was pretty impressive. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great event. I know you're not the only person to thank for it, but it was an absolute pleasure to be there and meet you guys, meet yourself, Tony, Sweet Potato, and everyone else. I can't name everyone.
No, yeah,
But
thanks.
it was a really good event.
And I mean, I want to thank like all the other people that came out. Like we had, I mean, I know you've got interviews queued up for a lot of them, but I mean, all the casters and folks from VRML that came. I mean, it was huge. Like I knew Frank was coming, but like to see him there, I'm like, this, like, you're like basically you're the god of Spark. Like that's intense, right? Intercosmo Callan, Jaywalker, like having the whole live US Canada thing as well. Like that was all I mean, insanely overwhelming. I ran into Intercosmo in the lobby and she came over and I'm like, VRML hoodie, I know I'm in the right place now. I'm like, that's awesome. And I had no idea that she was coming. I had I mean, I had ideas of who all else was coming, but it was kind of just interesting to see all the other people that came in that came from the community, and to have kind of that turnout for the casters as well was super appreciated and pretty humbling.
Yeah. So something else I wanted to bring up. So when we were at the event, when you opened the event, hi everyone, how you doing? You mentioned an anniversary of something quite personal. I don't know if you wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, the LAN event itself started because I wanted to do something to kind of to memorialize my son. It's something. It's kind of a it's something that a lot of folks do to kind of help them adapt or cope or kind of move through their grief journey. So having some kind of an anchor, whatever it is. So in other years, I've done a CrossFit workout that I made for him and did it at the gym or the box that we were at. Made a donation to my wife's university to their observatory, and then got to go look at the stars. So I mean, this kind of just it gave me another one of those opportunities to be able to talk about them, because I think talking about your loss and who you've lost is important. I volunteer as a co-facilitator for bereaved families in Ontario, so it's one of those things that I think is extremely helpful. Being able to talk about it and talk to others about it is it's just as helpful for me, as I hope it is for others to be able to kind of open up and do the same thing. As kind of a continuation to that, what I'm hoping to do, and I don't think I managed to talk about this part at LAN, is the trophy that I put together. I'm going to basically ship it to all the different players on Brick, kind of Stanley Cup style, and ship it to each one of them. What I've offered them to do, it's completely optional, but I think I've just kind of suggested that, hey, if you want to write down something about someone or something that you've lost that was important to you, and what you did, or what you thought was important, and how it helps you kind of work with that grief or that loss. And hopefully everybody from Brick will come to the next LAN, and whether we choose to have our own kind of little thing and read things, or whether or not we just have a straight up burning ceremony, or however we want to do it. I thought that was kind of something just kind of special for them, if they want to participate. And again, I think it's just kind of helps keep that conversation going, right? Because there's so many different kinds of grief that I don't think we cover all of it. Like I know my own kind of grief, but it's there's so many different kinds across the spectrum, and I think it's important to keep that conversation open.
So following on from that about conversation, by the way, thank you for saying that as well and going so in depth around it. But on the subject of conversation, did it bring up any conversations at the event? Did it spark any conversations with other people's grief?
It didn't directly, and I can kind of understand that, because people were kind of mostly there to kind of enjoy the event, and I didn't. The intention wasn't to kind of trample on that. It was just to kind of to make the point, right? It was just to make the point and let people do with it what they wanted. I did have my wife and I refer to it as a Tuesday. It's just one of the days that we remember having a really bad day, and it's just kind of like a grief burst, or like an emotional outburst. I was just grabbing kind of like the last things after packing up, and Newton Dad was there with me, and I basically I kind of just collapsed, right? Like it was a long event, and it was we were all on full adrenaline. As you said, Newton Dad was doing 8-hour shifts at the controls, so I mean it was pretty emotional. And when you're kind of running on adrenaline, you don't tend to kind of to have those kinds of conversations about those types of things. Like everything's just kind of going, and you're just kind of going with it. And so I just had a second to sit with him and kind of talk about it, because Newton Dad's obviously a dad as well. So I really appreciate him being there, and his support, not obviously just in tech, but just as another dad as well.
Yeah. And so it's been over a month now since the event. How's this? Have you had time to actually relax now the event's done? I mean, and by relax, I mean, for me, that's messing around in tech. So by relaxing, I've migrated the website to the cloud. I've updated the site so that I've added the pictures on there. I've added your promo video and Gunslinger's promo video, and some quotes from some folks, and kind of turned the previous land page into kind of an archive. I hope it'll be helpful, because I know Smooth wants to kind of use that kind of material as promo material for sponsors, and I hope that it's helpful to kind of have that. So to me, that was relaxing to migrate it. So that I've had time to relax, but
yeah, we're the org team is considering what our plans are, like if we're going to do something in 2030 and what that looks like and where that is. So there's some early talks happening, a couple meetings here and there, but nothing super concrete yet.
Have you always been a busybody? Have you always been a bit of a workaholic?
A little bit.
Asking
Yeah.
because you said my idea of relaxing is, archiving a website, building this. doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. But it's a couple of things for me. I mean, it's I think like I'm a huge proponent of continuous learning, right? Like whatever it is, whether it's this Echo, VR, gaming, cloud, whatever it is that I can learn, I do find that kind of relaxing to some extent. I mean, it's work, but when you're learning and when you're kind of like pushing your boundaries or pushing your limits, to me it never really feels like work, right? And even in like Echo, like learning something in Echo, I'm trying to remember at a coaching session with J-Dub from the Cookie Commanders, and he taught me and one of my teammates from my former team how to pull around from cloud. Was it cloud to cloud? Which geo is it?
Shoulder.
Yeah, no, shoulder. Yeah, to do like regrabs from shoulder to shoulder, like in kind of like a curve, right? Never would have thought of that before in my life, right? That you can actually pull in a curve, right? But you can, right? So like learning, whatever kind of learning it is, just, it's a huge drive for me. And it is kind of one of those things that does kind of keep me going.
And okay, on that, so do you play Echo like week in, week out? Do you have like a group of mates that you'll get on, do a private lobby? Do you run pubs at all?
I dropped out of my team specifically to help LAN, and I kind of cut back. I've been helping out with Gilligan with Viridis things off and on here and there, but I kind of pared back on that for a couple of different reasons. I changed my job in June, so I kind of pare back a lot on Echo since then. But I'm kind of starting to get back into it now, trying out for a team. So kind of starting to ramp back up into that, but I'll jump into kind of
oh nice. So you're full on
here and there.
Not full on, but you're on competitive play.
I'm hoping to get back into it. I've been in the privateers in Beer League a lot. Just kind of pushing the envelope and kind of seeing where I'm at. And I mean, I know that I'm not as fast and as quick as some of them, but just being able to kind of keep up, or like even being able to scrim with some teams and kind of like follow and like pick up on the things like front stack, back stack, like back stack dropping down to diamond to watch for the pass, jumping out for the pass through the tunnel, right? Like all those kind of picking up on all those strategies. It has been super helpful. I mean, it's been like a boost that I wouldn't have normally had. And I mean, I have different people to thank for that. Queen Cap, we scrimmed one of her teams early on as a bronze team, or I think we played them and they just killed us. But I followed her around a lot as well. So through to Viridis and 2CQ, a huge fan. I kind of would say that Queen Cap is the person that out of the 2CQ ladies themselves, Queen Cap is the person that I would follow, and Cool Whip is the person who I am, if that makes any sense. I don't know. We have a lot in common. I have a lot in common with Cool Whip, just in terms of kind of like our upbringing and things like that. So, I'm a huge fan of them though.
So when did you get into VR? When did you get into virtual reality? When did you get to Echo specifically, or was it not the same thing? Was there like...
No, so I'll try to make this as short or succinct as I can.
As long as you want it. I know you've got a dinner date soon.
Oh, it's all good. So I put $100 into Bitcoin about 10 years ago. And yeah, this is where this story starts. I checked it in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm like, oh shit, that's become a lot of money now. So it was about, I think, like 1,500 or something like that. So I upgraded my my media server, and I'm like, everybody's talking about Quest 2. Everybody's talking about VR. It's the middle of the pandemic, right? You couldn't get away from it. So in like, I think like March of 2020, I'm like, all right, cash out the rest of it into Amazon gift cards, and took the plunge, bought the headset, did what everybody else did, the standard, oh, hey, this looks like a free game. It's pretty popular. What does this do? And rest is history, I guess.
You're a questie.
Yeah.
Interesting. Most people that are really into this and have a techie background, they're generally entering a year or so earlier and on CV1 as well. That's the trend I'm noticing anyway.
Yeah. Everybody talks about the CV1. Did you ask Gilligan about Quest in your interview?
Yeah, he has a very opposite opinion, like quite a strong one as well.
I'm very aware of his opinion, and I apologize to him that I didn't bring one of my broken Quest headsets, because we were going to reenact that famous Office Space scene with the copy machine, but we did not get a chance to do that. But yeah, I mean, I have kind of a different perspective. I understand the trackers, and I'm super interested to get my hands on the new Pro controllers to see if that changes anything. But I don't necessarily, like, I understand the physics, and I'm interested to see if it changes things. I understand the physics with the CV1, and there's things that I obviously don't know. People talk about the CV1 flick and concepts like that I don't have any idea about. But I don't think that, like, the whole, like, loss of tracking, as long as you have positional awareness, there's nothing stopping you from passing the disc behind your back.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So I brief story, I was in the Cookie Commander server for a while. I did a bit of casting for them. They have different events. They have a horse kind of event, but they call it Cookie, where you have to, like, do trick shots and things like that. And
like
I practiced, yeah, exactly, kind of like horse, yeah. And I practiced, like, a behind the back trick shot, because I thought, A, even if CV1 people are doing it, it's still super difficult, and B, if people are questies, they're probably not practicing it. So I managed to win one of their matches, their horse match, by just A, like, keeping positional awareness, and B, using a behind the back shot to mess them up, or like spinning in real life, right? Like, you do things like that, and it's not things that people are used to, and it kind of tripped a lot of people up. So it was I respect Gilligan's opinion about the CV1. I just have a different perspective on it, and I'm not saying that things go wrong when you throw on Quest. They definitely do, but it's, yeah, I don't think it's as bad as here most people will say. But that's, again, I'm coming from not even playing on CV1, so
yeah, my opinion is
interested.
similar. My opinion is that there's 100% there's a difference. If you go from one to the other, you will notice a difference. In some people say that the game is just built for PC VR. It's built for a different hardware set, and it's evident when you do jump on a CV1 with proper tracking and everything, and like the throw, release, and all of that is different. But
yeah.
I was going to make another point, but I've forgotten it. But anyway, I wanted to segue into something specific, which is, okay, cool. You had the Bitcoin money, you bought a headset. How did you go from what I'm very interested in, because it might be what I'm hoping for with this YouTube that I'm building, and the different vlogs and everything that I'm building. I want the audience to see it to be Echo players. There's a massive demographic of people who play Echo, but they're not in any beer league, they're not in any Tyro or even Echo games. They're not in any of these Discord servers, but they play the game. The most they might have done is join a Facebook group for Quest 2. But they're in the game, but they're not in the communities. And what does that mean? That means that they're playing pubs, and that's all they think it is. They think it starts and ends with pubs.
Yeah.
and maybe there's some competitive league, and that's about it. And
Yeah.
what I want to expose is this whole, I was going to say underworld, it's not even underworld, it's just hidden world of community-based groups, servers in Discord, and people that
Yep.
meet up, smaller groups that are just a group of mates and they're expanding by people who know people, and then larger ones like Tyro, I guess Echo Canada to an extent, communities maybe regional like that. And that's what I want to expose. So yeah, the long way around is what I'm wanting to ask you is, how did you go from putting a headset on your face and playing Echo to then being involved in these communities and being a contributor to the community?
I think it's a combination of multiple things. And kind of to kind of circle back on your point, or maybe to kind of elaborate on it. I think the growing of it and bringing those other people in is kind of on each of us that's already in these other communities, right? Like so my story, or kind of how I got there, was I started out in the VRML Discord. I just kind of looking for teams, trying to find teams. Found a bronze team, joined a bronze team, got creamed by Queen Cap. Rest is history, right? Played against Queen Cap's team and followed her kind of everywhere and into all these different communities. But even while being on that bronze team, it's being a bronzy team is hard. It's a struggle. People are always looking to move up. People are always leaving the team. So I ended up kind of being a co-cap for at least part of a season, and all I did was go out and like hustle in pubs and try to recruit, right? Like because I mean, and back to the point I was going to make about growing these communities, I think that's what we all have to do, right? I know that there's kind of a an unspoken kind of like pubs kind of thing that when you're in these communities that you kind of get that mentality, but
Yeah.
I don't think it will get any better, and I don't think that these communities will grow if we don't go out and grow them ourselves. Like whether you're a bronzy team or whether you're a plat diamond, like I don't care. I think if we all want these communities to grow, it's kind of on all of us to go into the pubs and to kind of show the people, whoever they are, like, hey, yeah, let's not like use derogatory terms towards other people, or hey, how about not towards me if I'm on your team, right? Like let's kind of try and be reasonably civil. And if you like how I play and I like how you play, then hey, we can play a couple more pubs and we can hang out, and that's fine and that's cool. And if I'm in a recruiting mode and recruiting for a team, great. And if not, that's fine. I'll hang out with you, or if you want me to join a game some other time, that's cool as well. But yeah, I think it's those two things that are extremely important, right? It's going out into the pubs and kind of reaching out to people, and kind of making those relationships ourselves, and not getting discouraged like when you're just starting out, or when you're a bronze team, and if people are leaving for other teams or other ranks or whatever, don't get discouraged. Go out there and try and find your people, find your tribe, right? Like however that happens for you, don't give up on it. Like I recruited like 5 or 6 people into the bronze team I was on before I kind of took a hiatus. And there's the majority of them are still there now. So I mean, if I can do it, and I've only been doing this for like, I don't know, a couple of years, I think we can all kind of do it.
Yeah, I like it. So you're telling the people that want to find other people to play with to put themselves out there, meet other people, and try and get something going, befriend them, and run pubs with them, or potentially move into a team together. But you're also saying the vets, the people that have been playing for a long time, we just don't play pub. And when I say we, I mean just generally people that have been playing this game for a while, and they're in these communities that are kind of hidden.
Yep.
Because it is that's the bit I'm trying to bridge. That's the loose part, which is going from I play pubs. Because I'm sure some people just get lost in that for eternity. Not eternity, but for a long time. They'll play pubs, but they never connect with anyone to find their way in to one of these communities. But
I mean, I haven't ever kind of like verbalized it the way you did and the way I actually just did, but I think it's really important, right? Like, I mean, if we just continue to play in privates, or I continue to play in privateers in beer league or wherever it is, right? Like, our communities won't grow, right? Like, maybe they will. Maybe somebody will find VRML. Maybe somebody will find Tyro Academy, right? Like, maybe they'll grow. But imagine if we were all kind of focused on growing it as like all the different communities, right? Like going out into pubs and saying like, hey, yeah, 4 of us, let's just go out or split 2v2, or whatever, right? Let's just go in pairs or go in 4s and like try and find people to play with. And I mean, are there toxic lobbies? Yeah, 100%. But can you find like reasonably chill, cool people that are out there? Yeah, 100%. I mean, I recruited 4 or 5 of them into my like the bronze team I was on. So I mean, they're out there, and I think that's what you're trying to do too, right? You're kind of going at it a different way, but I think it's important to kind of do it the other way as well. I mean, that's where we all started. Right? It is where we all started. Until we found VRML, we were all in pubs just floating around, like I refer to myself. I mean, I use a derogatory term for it as well. Like when I go to a pub, I say I'm gonna go be a dead fish and float around. Right? Because odds are somebody's not gonna regrab with me. If they do, awesome, that's stellar. But it's probably not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna float around like a dead fish for a bit. But it's I think it's important to go out there, and it's important to like if we're in those toxic lobbies and we have those people that are saying those derogatory things, to kind of be like, hey, like, how about you don't do that? I'm on your team. Right? Like, and most people will listen. Like some won't. Some will just start screaming in your ear, and then that's when you find the mute button. But if we're not out there, if we're not trying to make it better, then what's the point, right?
So just to take us a different way now. So actually, you might have mentioned this already, but life before Echo. So before the pandemic, what did your life look like? And you maybe talk about the pandemic as well, what your experience with that was, and how you ended up buying this headset rather than buying a PlayStation or something else. Starting a different hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I already had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old during the pandemic, so it was busy enough as is. So the pandemic was mostly kind of bringing them up during the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, the headset was just kind of a different path and a different way to kind of have a different community. And I did a lot of Supernatural. I started, once I was like getting good at Supernatural, I started doing Supernatural with a weight vest. And because
Supernatural is fitness, right?
The fitness, yeah.
You know what? I personally really need to get on this. So I do skipping, I do running, things like this. But it's something that I'm into fitness. I need to add that cardio to my workout, and I haven't.
It's an interesting paradigm. And I mean, now that we can kind of go back to gyms now, I've kind of let it lapse. But
makes sense.
When we couldn't, I mean, having that as an option was super helpful. And I mean, and it's half the reason. Maybe I saw a Supernatural ad before I bought the headset. I don't 100% recall what drove me to it, but
it's a whole thing, right? Fitness is one of the major uses of virtual reality in this day and age.
Yeah, and I mean, if I didn't have a ceiling in the basement where I play, I mean, I'd be jumping a lot more in Echo, right? But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of physicality in it, and I mean, I think that all of these games in general, or like VR esports in general, I mean, I think it's severely underrated. And I'm trying to see if I can find a way to kind of push the envelope, because esports has taken off, and I find it confusing as to why VR esports, it has a trajectory, but it is not following that same kind of hockey stick curve as esports gaming is. And I think that I understand kind of the allure of esports, but I mean, seeing people at LAN, I mean, I can't see why there wouldn't be kind of more people kind of interested in specifically the games with more kind of physicality, right? Like the Beat Sabers or the Echoes.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand how the shooters might not be as entertaining, perhaps, but I mean, you have to crouch in some of those as well, right? So I don't know. Maybe it would be, but I'm
Yeah,
interested in
I'm
kind of pushing
similar.
that envelope.
I'm interested why, like for example, Pop One, that should be ticking all of the boxes for being something that should just explode and be amazing. It's the FPS format that's been incredibly successful on 2D. They've packaged it up, put it onto VR, and done it in a way where it runs the optimal way you can on a Quest, which is the X amount of people in the lobby. All of that is ticking all the boxes to be. It should work, and I guess it has. To be honest, I haven't followed it that closely, but it doesn't seem to. For some reason, it hasn't like hit the way I imagine it would.
Yeah,
I
and I mean, I don't know if it's just kind of like, and I mean, I don't know a lot of the history. I mean, like early on, kind of ESL stuff. Apparently, like Intel and Facebook and everybody were like super into this, and LAN's pre-pandemic was like huge. I've seen some of the ESL footage with Eclipse and all the other teams, the LAN in the UK and everything. Like I've seen all those things, so we know that it was starting to ramp up, but then the pandemic hit and everything kind of imploded, and nobody kind of carried that. Like, I mean, outside of the organizations like VRML, nobody really carried that inertia forward, and maybe the LAN that was announced at the end of season 7 is kind of going to be the throwback, and maybe we'll kind of start to see that ramp up, for Echo specifically, at least. But yeah, I'm hoping to kind of see more of that.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't even think of it like that because it's still fresh. The announcement for the Denver LAN, the grand final.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see more details because obviously I want to be there. If I lived around the corner, 100% I'd be there. But I've got to fly in a 10-hour flight, probably plus more than that now.
Yeah,
I think it was 8 hours to Toronto, so to Denver. Yeah, that's probably a few more hours, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love to be there. If it's literally fine, a couple matches, it's got to be more than that because they've done 2 days. So I'm hoping there's more going on.
I bought my tickets, but I'm hoping that there's more as well. And I mean, I mean, part of me is kind of secretly hoping that like that the work we did for this LAN is kind of like the groundwork, because it was kind of like a build up on top of all the others, right? Like, I'm sure there are things that went wrong at the Redshift site. Smooth would have known and would have prepped us for those things ahead of time. I'm sure there are things that went wrong at Nepa. I'm guessing there are things that went wrong at Tyro, but I don't know. But I'm hoping that I'm hoping that because we got to this point and it ran as smoothly as it did, that I'm hoping that kind of carries through, and all the things that we did are kind of picked up on it and used. I mean, it's an open invitation. Like I'm more than happy, like, and I'm sure Smooth and Sweet Potato and everybody else would be more than happy to kind of like share whatever we did, and if it helps VRML or helps make this Denver LAN event kind of push things forward in a more significant way, I think everybody would be on board to do that. Because to your point, I hope it's more than just the grand finals. I hope there's more interactivity, and I hope there's more inclusion from the outside world, period, right? Like pulling people in, like the venue that they've chosen, they have the capacity to do that. I'm hoping that's kind of part of their plan, right? Is that like, sure, okay, it's grand finals, maybe there'll be an exhibition tournament with people that want to sign up, but hey, like, why not like ping Meta and be like, can you like spare us like 8 headsets so that like people can just like drop in and play, right? Like pick up a headset, right? Like what better
This
way?
is something that, sorry to interrupt you,
Right?
but this is something that I think's been missing. Every LAN I've been to, I think there's massive opportunity. So I've been in my line of work, I've been similar tech assistant roles. I would be like on duty at an exhibition. So it'd be a business conference and there'd be headsets demonstrating the VR software. So I'd be there on hand. Sure, I'd be demoing myself as well, but also I'm just there just to make sure it all works. But being at these events, there'd be like people would be in the what are they called? Like theaters, conference rooms,
whatever. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it'd be like a hotel, that kind of thing. People would go into the conference rooms, have their talk, then they'd come out into the lobby. And in the lobby, you'd have 10, 15, maybe 20 stands where people are just selling, oh, I sell this device. This is the demographic for it. Here you go. That, in my experience, the three LANs I've been to, where is that? Where's the third party? Where's Echovr at the back selling their things? Here's a 10% discount for buying it here on the spot. You're skipping the delivery charge. Yeah. Where's that kind of stuff? I think that's missing. And if that's adopted, that leads to more sponsorship money, first of all, but also more reason for other people to turn up. Say there's like a raffle to win some headsets or something like that. But the reason I thought of that is, Meta could just have something set up at the back and promoting the devices, perhaps selling the devices there at the event.
Having the games there. Like, I mean, I think, I mean, if I'm not going to say, okay, I'm going to say if 2023 goes off, I mean, I think it's something. I had my 2 spare kits with me because I knew people were going to need spare headsets. I think Franz borrowed one at some point. Somebody else borrowed one. Pally borrowed my headset to play, right? So that's half the reason why I brought it, right? Is that like, and we needed to trade headsets. I think both you and I lent our headsets to one and only.
I always bring spare. I always bring like 2 or 3 headsets.
Right. So and I mean, I think it's it's a complete missed opportunity to not. I mean, the event that we had, the location we were at, not super high traffic, not really a good opportunity, perhaps, but it pings my mind. Like I'm gonna ping the folks at Nepaland and be like, hey, like, why don't you guys have some headsets kicking around? They have the giant space, right? Like, have some headsets kicking around for like people that are off the street. Like, have somebody out there like bringing people in. Like, they have super smart, like really enigmatic people that like bring people in, throw a headset on, play with, have somebody like high caliber play with them and show them the ropes. And like, I mean, that's kind of one of those like community things, similar to kind of like the outreach thing, that I think is super important. I think it's a missed opportunity if we're not doing it. So I mean, if it doesn't happen at NEPA, I really hope that it happens at the grand finals for VRML. I think it's a missed opportunity if it doesn't.
Yeah, 100%. And just to add on that, so yeah, demoing Echo, but also demoing other games. There's a lot of game developers that play this game. This is a prime opportunity to demonstrate the game that you've been working on in your bedroom to other Echo players, right? I would literally just put this headset on, bang, try this game. And I was talking to Gilligan earlier, and he's working for a company at the moment, which is they've got a launch coming out in January. That'd be perfect if they're at a LAN this year to demonstrate the app. That it's a great way to get people interested in sign up demo. And there's got to be so many like bedroom projects that are happening at the moment.
Oh, there's like Patreons. I'm a Patreon for the Jedi Knights on Quest, like the Knights of the Old Republic Quest thing. And they do the Quake Quest 3, or the Quake Quest 2, Quake 3 Quest 2. I forget what it's called, but there's so many. Yeah, to your point, there's so many different opportunities that I think are out there that are kind of missed. And I mean, we think of them now because it's hindsight, but I'm kind of hoping that folks will kind of push the envelope in the future.
I was just checking it was still recording.
Oh, okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about when I do these kind of interviews, I like to see the difference between someone's life before Echo and then how that changed with Echo, how Echo changed their life. And it's normally a narrative to do with community. They find community. They find, I think it was your words earlier, you said their tribe. People find their people, find their tribe in Echo.
Yep.
So I'm always curious, these people like yourself, and like everyone's humble. Or if I start saying this kind of stuff, you're going to be like, no, don't say that. But to put on a LAN